Here. So we're going to be talking about the foundation of leadership. We've been going through a lot of different leadership series, and this is obviously one we're going to be doing for a while. But and the foundation of leadership really is character. And there's really 15 leadership problems. I'm going to walk through those. The first one is thinking we are immortal, immune, or downright indispensable. So one of the problems with leadership can be that you start getting into a position of influence and you start thinking you're immortal or immune or indispensable. I've learned this myself quite a bit when I got in a car accident and got viral meningitis and learned pretty quickly that I am not immortal, immune, or indispensable. But it is something that can be a delusion. The second one is excessive busyness. This is a huge temptation when you start getting into leadership, and when you are pursuing that, you can get into a huge challenge of excessive busyness. This is something I fight all the time. It's definitely one of my blind spots, is just, you can just go and go and go and get into excessive busyness that leads to burnout eventually. And that's a big danger zone for leaders. The third one is mental and emotional petrification. So this is the idea that you can become sort of hardened to things where you think that your way is the best way, and you just dig your heels in, and you're petrified. You're hardened to thoughts, feedback, correction. And so this can definitely be a danger zone. I've seen this happen with a lot of leaders I've dealt with in the past. They just very closed off to feedback. Number 4 is excessive planning and functionalism. So this can be a real problem. It is one of the things we talk about here a lot, is you can overplan. We always talk about this, the idea of the A plan that sits on the shelf is really worthless versus a B plan that's actually put into practice, and so, but some people can get into excessive planning, which honestly, I'm not saying it's the case all the time, but a lot of times it's just sort of a masked notion of procrastination. When we excessively plan, we're almost trying to procrastinate to do something. Number 5 is poor coordination. So this is somebody who just can't, coordinate, put it together, make it move in a particular direction. So they get lost with too many ideas and just won't make a decision. So they have poor coordination. Number 6, a leadership problem is what we call leadership Alzheimer's disease. So this is, somebody who forgets all the people that came before them and how much they poured into them. And so they have Alzheimer's disease. They're forgetful of how much people poured into them and how much they really are obligated to do the same. Number 7 is rivalry and vainglory. So this really, in my opinion, is a byproduct of jealousy and envy. When years and years ago, you guys probably heard my testimony if you watched any of the videos, but I was an extremely envious and jealous guy. I mean, to the point where I literally was producing 80% of the revenue. If anybody even produced anything, I just literally became envious and jealous, and it just ate me alive. So I was always in rivalry and sort of this negative, competitive nature. Essential schizophrenia. This is almost like a two-faced life, a double life that you live, where you have a duplicitous heart, and you have one face here and you have another face somewhere else. I mean, we're all a little bit hypocritical, so don't hear me wrong, but I'm just saying that you have this extremely essential schizophrenia in the way you function in life. Number 9 is gossiping, grumbling, and backbiting. This is extremely dangerous. nipping at people behind their back, complaining and whining about people, and backbiting. It's definitely a leadership problem, and probably more than not a maturity problem when we get into a bad habit of grumbling and complaining about people. Number 10 is idolizing superiors. So this is when we place somebody on a pedestal to where they just almost seem flawless, and they're, have no feet of clay. So this can be a real danger, is just putting somebody way above where they were ever designed to be. Number 11 is indifference to others. One of the most dangerous things is not hate, but indifference. It's just kind of like you don't care, you're indifferent to what happens to people or circumstances. And there's certainly some tie-ins that can happen through burnout. Number 12 is downcast faces. This really is a function of just looking down on people, feeling you're superior and they're less than. So this is what we talk about, is that people are intrinsically valuable, whether we agree with them or not, or whether we do business with them or not, they're automatically valuable. But we can get into a place where we start to elevate ourselves and decelerate them. Number 13 is hoarding. This is the idea that you become materialistic and you start accumulating stuff, and you're spending all your resources on things just to become a hoarder because of your influence and power. Number 14 is closed circles. You become cliquey. You roll into groups and try to cut people out from being a part of things. And then the 15th one is extravagance of self-exhibition. So you're probably becoming overly materialistic. You're trying to maintain some sort of facade or extravagance to accomplish some sort of, which ties back to probably vainglory as well. So anyways, I'll stop there for a minute just to see if, any comments, thoughts behind those, anything stuck out?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thinking back on like people I've worked with in the past, and mostly Dan, but yeah, people that this applies to. No, not Dan. But no, I can think of like leaders I've had in the past, and not that they were bad, not like they were bad people, but I'm like, oh man, I remember like, so and so used to do that, and putting people on a pedestal, and it's all like, yeah, that's not that really wasn't a good thing, because it gives everybody like this false sense of hope that oh, just hand it to Bob and he'll get it done, and you're not really looking at the problems and things like that. You're just like, oh, just put it in the solution box, and it really just kind of ignores the problems, I guess, in a way, or ignores the issues. You just think you have a go-to solution. But yeah, it's even in like minor ways that can, and not in a harmful or like in a intention of malice. It's you put somebody on a pedestal, it's like, oh, I appreciate you lifting them up too high, but even that's detrimental as in a leadership position.
Yeah, that's good. Like that. Okay, so truism here is, the reality is that leading ourselves is often the most difficult task we face every day. So think about that for a minute. So if you take nothing away, remember this: leading ourselves is really the most difficult task that we'll face every day. So a couple of, the Bible says that, Jeremiah 17:9, that our hearts are deceitful. They can be deceptive. We can deceive ourselves into certain things, into certain belief systems, into a certain perspective or perception of ourselves. And so we have the ability, and fortunately, to be deceptive to ourselves at times. Character is the area that will face the greatest attack for us. So really just think about that vulnerability to a leader is his character. There's a mentor of mine that talked about VIP being a very influential person. And he talks about having vision and integrity and passion. And he says, you don't have integrity, you really can't lead and people down the road. So some character value statements. Good character builds strong trust. This idea of the speed of trust, low trust costs time and money. There was this concept that after 9/11, trust in the flight security went down dramatically, obviously, just with everything that happened. And so the speed of trust, if you have low trust, there's a cost to it, time and money, the amount of time that went into it, the amount of time that you had to go through security, as there was a tremendous amount of low trust. Trust is a risk game. Leaders must be the first ones to ante up. So that's James and Barry Posner. So it's a risk game, right? So we have to be the ones to step into the gap as a leader. And in leadership, a pint of example equals a gallon of advice. So we have to be the ones that live that out in our lives, which makes things all the more challenging to lead. A couple of statements under this is, I thought trust was a nice to have, not a must. And the reality is it's essential. You can't have influence if you don't have trust. You can't have impact in the positive sense if you don't have trust. We have to build trust, and trust certainly takes some time. The second one is, I thought trust was up to others. If my people learn to trust me, I'll get their attention. But if I initiate trust in my people, I'll get their action. Okay. So it's up to us to initiate trust. As we always tell our kids, if you want good friends, you have to be a good friend. I thought trust could only grow slowly. There is some truth to that, but I think you actually can accelerate it by leveraging the vouch can accelerate trust. So, I do this all the time, having somebody introduce you to other people is a great way to grow trust and grow it fast. When somebody introduces you to somebody else, that is an acceleration in trust. Therefore, a deeper relationship quicker. I thought a single mistake automatically destroyed trust. I remember back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, it was a difficult time, and we had a large office building. We owed a bunch of money, and I had to lay a bunch of people off, and I had to sell the building, and it just was a tough time. I learned a lot of lessons, but I remember during that time, I thought, man, I'm finished. I'll never have any credibility again because, we're upside down on this building. I'm going to have to pay all this debt back. And, thankfully, we were able to pay it back. But in my mind at the time, I thought, my reputation is shot. But, thankfully, we're able to just slowly build that back over time. So these mistakes aren't always completely detrimental. Successful leaders embrace the 4 dimensions of character. So here's the 4 dimensions: authenticity, self-management, humility, and courage. So you repeat that again: authenticity, self-management, humility, and courage. So these really are the 4 dimensions of character, the framework. So let's talk about authenticity. So authenticity really is about living an open life between success and failure lines. So here's what I mean by that. All of our lives, we have a tally on both sides of the coin of a lot of success that we've had and a lot of failure. And the danger is you can easily promote all your successes, right? That's your first foot forward, is all the things you've accomplished, all the success you've had, because people are gravitate towards success, and rightly so. But where we get into trouble is if we're not being honest or authentic, is that we hide the other side of the coin and don't share the reality of some of our failures as well. And so, really, this authenticity is this open life where you are holding both things in both hands between success and failure. So people really can understand and connect with you, I think, on a deeper level. And that's how you really grow and develop your characters, by being authentic in your life. Quote by Max Lucado: God would rather us walk with an occasional limp than a continual strut. I think we all know this, that we tend to be more connected and gravitate more towards those people that have gone through a lot and that are honest about the challenges that they've faced in their life. One of the ways you can manifest this is by having some close friendships and learning to be authentic and open in those safe relationships that you have. The second one of the 4 dimensions of successful leadership character growth is self-management. So we set young leaders up for a fall if we encourage them to envision what they can do before they consider the kind of person they should be. So if you think about being before doing, so you're learning how to grow in your character, learning how to manage yourself. If you can't manage your own household, how are you going to manage a large institution? So this idea that you have to learn how to self-manage, get yourself out of bed, make things happen, put things together, go to the gym if that's what that means, learning discipline, learning how to be self-disciplined is critical to grow your character. And as John Maxwell always says, leadership is always uphill. It's always upstream. And everything worthwhile is all upstream, and which means you have to be disciplined to push through when everything inside of you says, I really don't feel like it, which I hear a lot from our kiddos. And I think of when we're childlike in our mentality, we just kind of give into the feeling. I don't feel like doing it. And part of self-management is doing it even when you don't feel like doing things. A couple of questions you can ask about self-management is there's 3 notions: consistency, choices, and credit. Am I the same person no matter who I am with? That's consistency. That's a good question to ask yourself. Choices: do I make decisions that are best for others, even when another choice would benefit me? That's a good question to ask about self-management. And then credit: am I quick to recognize others for their efforts and contributions to my success? So these are some good ways to ask of yourself as you're going through developing your own character. The third dimension of character development is humility. This is a quote I really enjoyed. It is the habitual quality whereby we live in the truth of things, the truth that we are creatures and not the creator, the truth that our life is a composite of good and evil, light and darkness, the truth that our littleness, we have been given extravagant dignity. Humility is saying a radical yes to the human condition. So just think about that, just understanding who you are relative to your creator and recognizing the reality of your human condition is a good starting place to foster and grow humility, which is a character trait. Final one is courage. This makes character possible and empowers us to do what's right in the face of fear, fatigue, or uncertainty. So courage really by definition is doing something not in spite of fear, but even though it's there, we still move forward, even if we're afraid to do it. Jenna did this the other day, and she was going to have to call an appraiser. And I know it was a little scary, but you did it even though it was a little scary. And that's how we develop the concept and the character trait of courage. This only happens through experience, unfortunately, and trial and suffering. That's really the only way the soul can be strengthened. It's not something that we all want to sign up for, but it's something we have to do if we want to grow our leadership, and if we want to grow our character, we have to be and learn to become courageous. Character makes you bigger on the inside than on the outside. There's a couple of quotes by David Brooks. Success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. Failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning. So soak that in for a minute. Self-respect is produced by inner triumphs, not external ones. So this is really what happens is when you're building your character, you're building the internal life in spite of what happens externally in your own life. And I think we all know this is true. So in closing, there's really three things to give focus to as we land the plane on character as a leadership trait. Is number one, embrace good values. You really should have a framework. We certainly do at the company here. We have good values. We have core convictions, we call them, and we embrace them. We hold to those fast. Number two is to practice self-leadership. This is the essential of self-management. And number three is to value people. So these are three great starting places for you to start to build your own character on your path of growth as a